Right. Okay. Where should we start?
So I think we just start. At what point did you have the land clearing come in?
Oh, it was coming in through the first half of last year. And then, as often is the case, when you get these things and you go, that's big. I don't quite know what to do with that. So I sort of probably procrastinated with it for a few months before just going, and then that you have to just leap off at the deep end. You just have to say it's got to happen. So and I didn't know, I knew that I was going to be doing it, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't really know how it was going to feel, and of course I didn't know how it was going to change, because it was being done as a collaborative thing. So you can do stuff in your own head, but when you start to do it as a collaborative level, then you've got to, the energy is accommodating, it's adjusting because of the harmonic of all the people who are participating. So then it becomes something of its own. So it came in, it was brewing in the first half of the year, and then it was like, no, I've got to do this. I can't sit on it any longer. I need to do it. And it was lovely to then just sort of take it out to people who just went, yes, it makes perfect sense to me. Because sometimes when you're doing things, you think, oh, come on. You're expecting people to turn around and say, don't be ridiculous. Like, what are you talking about? And then for people to just go, yes, totally get it. I understand it. Yes, I want to be part of it. That was just like, yes. And it was just nice to release it and let it do its own thing.
And this, I know for me, when you brought that to me, it wasn't in my awareness at all. And the minute you said it, I was like, well, of course, yes.
Yeah.
This is absolutely what needs to happen. And so I just want to have people understand a little bit, because I know you brought it out into the world. Some people might know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But in case they don't, I would just love for you to explain what that was about.
Okay, so this was about our relationship to the land and how we can communicate with it, but more importantly, how it can communicate through us. Because quite often we have this perception is put out, particularly in the online space that I see. This perception is, oh, get out into nature and ground. And there's a very taking element to that. It's for my benefit. Nature is there for my benefit. And I was just like, no, it's not. We're part of a harmonic, a balance. So how do we understand what the land needs? How do we understand how to help heal all of what's going on in our world, and how imbalanced it's become, and how do we work with nature to allow that to happen? Because some of this, if you listen to nature, some of the things that it's going to tell you to do are going to seem very counterintuitive, because it's trying to come back into balance. So I was thinking, well, how do we get through all of this? I mean, we've got this manifestation of this interference in our relationship, things like pollution, plastic pollution, air pollution. All of these things are actually just a metaphor for the lack of connection that we have at a deep level to nature. So it sort of emerged into an understanding then that there is a lot of interference, some of it perhaps deliberate, some of it not, and it depends on where you stand on any of that. But there's interference there from satellites beaming down 5G or whatever, through to plastic bottles littering our countryside or whatever. All of those things are the same. Effectively, they are a distortion and interference between us and nature. So this land clearing was about clearing the interference so that people can hear the land talking to them. And one of the messages that came through for me again and again last year was, wait for the land to move through you. It can't do that, though, if there's a lot of interference there. So people need the space and they need the time, and then the land will move through them. And I think that's why it's so important that we acknowledge the place that we're coming from, and that the place that we're coming from is a really important part of how we work in our businesses and how we express in our lives as well. So our place is a contribution to our business. Which is like, so yes, it was all sorts of things. You can see that, you know, I could carry on talking about it for ages, because it just goes off in so many different avenues. But that was the core of it. It was like coming back to the truth of who we are and how we all connect together with nature, with each other.
And this, as I hear you talking about this, it just, for me, it's so succinct that we're moving from the power over model,
Yeah,
the power over the land, and I'm just going to bulldoze and do this and make the land do what I think it should. And that is sort of our, you know, all over in our society. And we're moving to this cooperative, conjunction with, empowered place.
yes, yeah. And it is this, the shift in the dynamic of I will shape and I will mold, to I am part of and I have an energy to contribute to that brings the whole to life. Not I will take, you know, I mean, our business models, which are based upon the multinationals in particular, you know, that's where our business models all derive from, which is bonkers, but they're all about profit over people and planet. They're all about taking and using natural resources, whereas something that's coming up for me, and I know that you know about this, but something you also know that it's not something I've spoken about much, is about the concept of creating ecosystem businesses that are fully connected into the ecosystem, so they are contributing in as much as they are taking. Now, of course, we don't know what that looks like. I mean, that is so far out of our current norm that, you know, I don't know what that looks like, but I do know that's where we're going. And we can start to work on that in our own businesses, in our own ways, by being very conscious about how we create and how we share and how we show up and how we work with people and how we bring the land into that.
Yeah. And that, you know, when you say that, like, there's just such a lightness in my body that I'm like, yes, this is what I'm here for. This is what I want. And this is what my business wants.
Yeah.
And this is what we are creating, this container to hold that in this mastermind.
Absolutely. But one of the pieces that you've got, though, is that that coming back to the land, coming back to nature, is you've got that connection to a very primal aspect of that energy, and the very it's a very foundational piece, and I think it's worth you explaining how that's emerging for you and how that's going to contribute as well.
Well, I think that primal piece, this, for me, right around the time Polly got the land clearing, I started hearing messages from the dark goddess. And I just want to say, like, that's not something I ever thought was going to happen. And when it first happened, I was like, oh, that's really weird. And so this balance between the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and all we have seen in our society is toxic masculinity. So there has not really been space for the divine masculine, or for the divine feminine, and the divine, it wasn't divine masculine, it was just toxic masculine everywhere. And so bringing these together and back into balance, allowing that to be witnessed and really felt. That's, I almost feel like I don't even have the right words. It's just there is something so still in me right now, just describing that a little bit. And I think I just want to pause and let that be soaked in, because it feels so important. Even just that little touch there of that energy.
Yeah. But what's kind of interesting is that, you know, as you're talking about that, it's a very visceral, physical thing for you. And one of the things that I've learned is to, you know, and it's a work in progress, obviously, but it's getting out of my head and into my body. And one of the things that's going to be very obvious about our approach to this, and, you know, to walking people through a very different way of being in business, is that we're going to be in our bodies doing it, not in our heads. All of the interference that comes from being in your head, that's going to be put to one side. We're going to be working through our bodies. We're going to be finding safety in our bodies so that we can find safety in our expression, so we can find safety in our businesses, so that we can find safety out in the world. And, you know, your bag is working with empaths and highly sensitive people. You know how difficult that is. But even if you're not, you know, highly sensitive, taking your energy out into the world is probably one of the most terrifying things that you can do.
Yeah.
You have to say something that is so not the norm or what's expected of you, that, and it doesn't feel safe. It should do, but it doesn't. And that's, you can't just flick a switch and make it safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is this this sense of safety in the body. And that actually speaks to what I see as the biggest trauma in the world right now. Like, lots of us think, oh, we don't have any trauma. We don't have any trauma. But if you can't feel the feelings in your body, that is the trauma. We have been cut off. And some of us have been lucky to develop the brain, right? The brain, the logic, it's been great. It's kept us safe. It's got us to where we are. And now things are moving. And if we don't fix this bridge and bring the information down, we are going to be stuck in this power over shit.
Absolutely. And those emotions that even if you can't feel them, they're in there. I mean, they're in your body, and they're impacting how you're behaving, whether or not you're conscious of it or not. And, you know, many people who've been, you know, they've been on this journey for a while now. You know, they know what their patterns are. They can see their patterns. You just don't necessarily know how to fix your patterns, and allow that to move through. And that takes time. It's not something that you can do in an instant. It takes time to feel safe, to let it through, and then to witness it, and then to deal with the repercussions of it moving through. It takes time. One thing I've learned working with my clients, as I'm sure you have as well, is that there's a really messy piece. Comes when it comes, but it's normally around the middle. You start to break it down, and there's a lot of resistance. And you may well get this as well. I mean, I get clients who come in and like the head's working overtime trying to process all of this, and then all of a sudden, boom, and they drop, and they understand what it means from a different level, and then it's like, then everything just completely falls away, and it's rebuild it.
Yeah.
And you know, that's not something you can achieve in a short program.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work. You know, we've looked at this before, haven't we? And we've just go, actually, what's really needed now out in the world is a really good long-term safe space to be able to move through all of this.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. There's going to be some messiness, and that's okay. That's how we learn. And that's how we reprogram, how we rewire. You can't just put the new program in. It needs some deconstruction, some, you know, the goop of the cocoon, right?
Yes. Yeah, you can't, yes, and unless you get rid of, you properly clear it all of that out, and you're building on old foundations over and over again. It might feel like it, and you might get some movement, you might get some progression, but you're going to slide back. And for me, that's just not a tenable position to be in anymore. We need people who are moving forward consistently and coherently, and have the capacity and the strength and the resilience to continue to move forward, because they're on the leading edge.
Yes.
And you and I know that because we're on the leading edge, and we know how tough it is to talk about the stuff that we talk about.
Yeah. And that is exactly it. This work we are doing is for people on the leading edge who know that they have a mission, that there is a program here that the next 5, 10, whatever amount of years, they are going to be out there on the world stage, helping bring this new earth energy to full fruition, to its full magic.
Yeah. And I think it's important to say that just anybody who's holding the trauma of visibility, being on the world stage does not necessarily mean being Oprah. You know, it doesn't mean having an audience of that size. It means just taking up space, taking up your corner, or however you want to see it. But it's about being confident enough to do your work in its fullest shape. Because the things that you find yourself having to talk about in order to do your work will challenge you every single day. You know, and we've talked about this many times, really, about how difficult it is to start talking about some of these things because they are outside of our frame of reference, and they are intuitively guided. So we can't go out there and say, right, I can give you proven steps to doing this. We have to use our provenly valid intuition to work it out. And that is very deeply challenging to the notion of what an entrepreneur, you know, a good entrepreneur is, or a good coach is, because they have to have this all of the qualifications and all of the results on tap. And that's not true for where we are. We can't. We are taking the best of our skill sets and we're saying, we know this to be true. Let's find you to your version of that truth. It's not our version of the truth. It's not, you know, we are not going to give you a blueprint to follow. We're not going to give you steps to follow. We are going to show you how you can find this within yourself.
That's right.
And when you've got that, it's the teaching somebody to fish over giving them a fish situation.
Yeah. That, I think, summarizes it. That's definitely what I wanted to share today.
Yeah. But I think the one thing that really excites me about this is that you and I are able to bring our very complementary but different approaches. Because on paper, you wouldn't put us together, but in practice, that combination of skills and perceptions and approach, the way that we approach things. So, you know, as you said, you work in a very emotional and physically led framework, whereas I wouldn't say it was necessarily intellectual, but it's, you know, I can pull energy into articulation much more easily than many can.
Yes.
If I can claim my gift, and that so I can articulate something that people can only feel, because I can translate their experience of it into something. So that combination of skills gives us the ability to create a space where you're safe in yourself, you're safe in your work, you're safe in the space that we create to articulate it, so that you build the capacity to take it out into the world. And I want to get to sort of like the tail end of 2023 and just be in full celebration mode for the people who join us, of all the changes that they've made and the way that they're moving out into the world, because that's what I can see. That's the bit I can feel. I can feel that level of transformation.
And I just, for a moment, when you said this, I went to, you know, December 2023, and I have to swear, the fucking light that is emanating from our group, I'm tearing up at it, because
it's huge.
It is so intensely powerful. And
yeah. And so, you know, for me, everybody who comes into this is going to be part of creating that. It's not, we're going to guide it, and I suspect we might do more of our guiding at the beginning, but as we're moving into it, we're going to be the supporting acts almost, in terms of, say people are going to be coming into their own and really finding that strength and that resilience, and as you say, that light. But it's the collaborative nature, not just you and me collaborating, but everybody collaborating to create something that is on a completely new level to what we've been experiencing for very many years.
Yes.
So yeah, the invitation is there. If you would like to move into this, if you can sort of see yourself in this energy, you want to be part of it, the invitation is there. It's nothing complicated, no complicated ways to get involved in it. Just step forward.
Beautiful. Yeah, you can reach out to Polly or me, and we can go from there.
Okay.